So you want to be a fighter in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Don't we all? Uncomplicated, unga bunga, run to fight, smack things with big damage. But wait, Barbarian Rage, Ranger Precision, Rogue Sneak Attack, Inventor Overdrive? But I thought the fighter was all about the damage. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're about the attack instead. Hey everyone, the voice you're hearing is mine. I am Obscura, and the lovely visage you see before you is my Eldritch buddy Deaton. We're kind of in a shared body situation, but you don't have to worry about that because today we're going to be talking about the fighter and their place in the grand pantheon of Pathfinder 2 classes. We're going to start with an initial overview of the class and what I believe to be its purpose, before touching on some advice for playing one and a couple of fighter builds. This is not meant to be an exhaustive overview of the class. I'm not going to be reading out every feat, but more of an intro to the class for people who might be new to PF2 or are interested in playing one. To begin with, the fighter chooses either dexterity or strength as their class attribute. This choice helps with decisions regarding what build you want for the class, whether you want to prioritize power and damage or if you want to approach the fight with a little more agility. You get the 10 plus constitution for hit points, an instant indication that no matter your style of fighter, you are meant to take hits and damage. You are an expert in perception to better keep an eye out for potential ambushes and other opportunities that might emerge in the heat of battle. When it comes to saving throws, you're an expert in fortitude and reflex to better mitigate the most often called upon spells for damage, but you are only trained in will because honestly, something's gotta give. That's not to say you're an apt. You're trained in either acrobatics or athletics to better emphasize your key attribute choice. You also begin trained in 3 other skills plus your intelligence modifier to round them out and give you that much needed variety. Your proficiencies don't end there though, as you are an expert in simple, martial, and unarmed attacks while also being trained in all advanced weapons. In short, you are the weapon master. Regarding your defenses, you are trained in all armor types and in unarmored defense, and you are trained in your class DC. So already the fighter is beginning to take shape. Lots of hit points, lots of expertise across the board, but not necessarily in skills, but in the practical needs of combat. They don't just know their weapon, but their enemies as well. To face down a fighter in combat is to go against someone who knows how to handle your weapon better than you do. Additionally, and some would say more importantly, as a first level fighter, you'll get what is probably one of the biggest things that's separated from other classes, even other martials. At first level, you get reactive strike. For those of you familiar with other systems, this is sometimes referred to as attack of opportunity. This is important to note because in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, not everyone gets attack of opportunity or reactive strike. Fighter is the only one that gets it at first level, though other classes get the opportunity later on. This gives you as a fighter more of an opportunity to punish those who try to do anything too fancy or try to flee from you. They also get 2 feats. The first is a fighter class feat. It's a big list, so I won't be going through it, but when we do go into the build advice section of this video, I will be giving suggestions for what to take that will work well with that particular build. The other feat is a general feat and is something that a lot of other classes get, and that is Shield Block, a reaction that lets you reduce damage with your shield. So putting this together, at first level you don't necessarily have someone who's all about bringing the hurt to others. The shape is that of someone who is a consummate expert of combat, a master of weapons, and truly unbeatable in martial matters. But this brings us to the question that I posed in the beginning. What is the fighter really about, if not the big damage? Common consensus is that they are all about that crit, baby! Yet, I don't agree. Sure, they output crits more than any other class, but they don't get the big damage like other classes. And look, I get it, and to be fair, at early levels that's kind of how it plays out. They get the crits, they do the damage, they get the kills. But even at those early levels, they're outpaced by Barbarian, and as the levels escalate, Rogue starts to lap them. So what are they really about? In a word, consistency. Hear me out. Their to hit bonus far outpaces everyone else's, and with PF2's tiered success system, this would lead you to think the reason for this is to go for those plus 10 crits, not just the nat 20s. However, I think the truth of the matter is that the fighter, more than any other class, is designed to hit over and over again, to look at multiple attack penalties and laugh uproariously. Unlike every other class, it's not about attacking once per round, it's about the second hit and the third. You see this in its feats, where the class has more press feats than any other class. Press feats being ones that can only be used when affected by map, or multiple action penalty. This kind of implicitly tells me that the intention of the class is for combos to factor into their playstyle, to strike once, and then follow up with another strike that does something additional. Normally for most PCs, going for those multiple attacks, this would be detrimental. But with their early weapon mastery, the fighter is ahead of the bell curve in terms of this kind of thing. More than any other class, they are supposed to be the switch hitters, swapping weapons every other action. This is why lightning swap exists. So you can put an arrow in someone's face 60 feet away and then get your sword and shield out to properly mix it up in melee. So what does this consistency look like in actual play? Well, speaking as a GM who has had several PCs play as fighters, including one that went all the way to 20, what it means is they control the battlefield in a very real way. Take the bully build for the fighter, which is all about shoving. Shove pushes a target up to 5 feet, 10 feet on a critical, and allows you to follow them if you so choose. With fighters often prioritizing strength, it means they are very suited to be good at athletics-based maneuvers, such as shove. So it is possible to shove a target 10 feet on a critical. Follow them, and because you have that great to hit bonus, follow with a brutish shove, which has the press trait, with another 5 to 10 feet of movement. You and the target of your ire have moved up to 20 feet away, you've damaged them, and you still have an action left. With this kind of build at those high levels, you are punching your foes around the battlefield like it's a pinball machine. That's not to mention other battlefield maneuvers like disarm, grab, and trip. Alrighty, so we got it in mind. Attack combos with maneuvers and strikes. What do we do with them? Well, we do the fun stuff. This is where we get into the build device section of this video. We're going to cover 3 different builds: heavy armor, heavy weapon, and heavy range. Let's start with heavy armor. Now, heavy armor is somewhat divisive. Sure, you get a lot of AC, but you're slow to recrawl with even the cheapest sets of heavy armor, reducing your speed by a hefty minus 10 feet. Now here's something to remember that a lot of people forget, and to be fair, it's a little hidden away. If you meet the strength threshold, that penalty is reduced by 5, so it's only a 5-foot penalty. This means for the most part, you'll have a 20-foot speed while everyone else will have around 25. That's not too bad, but that's not nothing. But fighters have ways to mitigate that. Let's jump into it. For this build, your aim is strength all the way, so during character creation, you're going to want that +4 strength. How you arrange the rest doesn't matter as much, but you don't have to worry about dex. Once again, you will have ways to mitigate that low reflex save. Now, the reason you want strength is not just to maximize the obvious hit and damage, but to go past that threshold for your armor so you're taking less of a speed penalty, and to make sure you have the carrying capacity to manage the bulk of it. Bonus points if you can get Hefty Hauler as a skill feat. With that, you need equipment. The 2 major ones will be the Splint Mail and the Wood Shield. This is only going to leave you with 1 gold piece to spend, but you're going to be beginning play with 18 AC, 20 with your shield raised. Okay, but what do you use as a weapon? To begin with, something cheap. Hell, go with the club. It's free. If you want to spend some silver, the flail is a great option. The point being, you're going to be using your first payday to upgrade your weapon anyway, but the priority should be on something one-handed, and ideally something that has traits that enable maneuver usage. Hence my first recommendation of the flail. Disarm and trip are great maneuvers for a fighter. One takes weapons away and the other puts your opponents on the ground. Sweep is also perfect for fighters as it allows them to take advantage of their high to hit to make more swings more often. So we have the basic idea of the kit, but what are the feat? We got a few options at first level, but for this build we're going for something that might be a little unexpected. Sudden Charge. Sudden Charge is an evergreen feat that for 2 actions allows you to strike twice and then strike if the option is there. For a heavy armor fighter, this is fantastic because it mitigates the biggest weakness of heavy armor. The speed penalty. Crossing 40 feet and striking for 2 actions puts you faster than most even with the penalty. It also leaves you with an action left which you can use for a follow-up attack, which your high to hit backs up, or a raised shield to really maximize your AC. So that's our first build. For our second, we have the Heavy Weapon Fighter, otherwise known as the JRPG Protagonist. Once again, we're going to be aiming for that +4 strength, but here's where the difference comes into play. You're going to want to bump up your dex as much as possible. You won't be getting that +4, but +3 is possible if you grab a background that gives you either dex or strength. A good choice there is Aerialist, because it also gives you acrobatics and rope lore. Acrobatics for the obvious agility reasons. Rope lore is for, well, if you know, you know. Much like the heavy armor build, this is for the strength of the matter because you're going for the biggest weapon you can find and going for the big base damage numbers. Dex is for your AC and acrobatics because you aren't just going to be strong but mobile as well. For your equipment, you'll be wanting light armor. For aesthetics, I suggest studded leather, but if you want, you can go for the chain shirt, I guess. For a weapon, you want the biggest weapon you can wrap your hands around because you can take it. Greatsword is the obvious choice here, but don't disregard the Great Axe or Maul. Sweep on the Great Axe works really well for this build, and Maul can be really fun with Shove. Now for the feat choice. You're going to be tempted by Vicious Swing, and that's absolutely an option here, but remember what I said earlier. Big damage is great, but with a fighter you want to be swinging more often, not less. Additionally, at early levels, if you have a big weapon, you'll be wasting a lot of that damage anyway, going well over 0 HP on targets. If that's the case, then what feat? Little bit of a dark horse for you, but Exacting Strike. This is an interesting feat that gets overlooked a lot, but it's great if you want to be the fighter that's unleashing as many attacks as possible. Essentially, what it means is that if your second attack misses, your third doesn't take the increased multiple attack penalty. So if you do happen to miss that second strike, you can use your third action to give it another go. This synergizes well with Sweep, as you get a +1 to hit different targets on your follow-up attacks. As an aside, this build presumes you won't be using a shield, so if you really want to dig deep into this build, consider asking your GM to swap Shield Block for Fleet. They're both first level general feats, and it really helps drive the theme for this build home. For our final build for this video, Heavy Range. This is the only build discussed today in which you're going to be prioritizing Dex over Strength, and you're after that +4 once again. This is because you use Dexterity for calculating your range to hit bonus. However, don't forget Strength. Make sure you get a little bit, at least a +2. Having a high Dexterity, much like the previous build, will help with AC as well. Speaking of, once again, go for Light Armor if you can. Pick your poison, but make sure the dex cap doesn't eat into your AC. As for weapons, you're going for 2, longbow and shortbow. 2 weapons? Yup. Look, I will always suggest having a backup weapon in general, but for this build, ideally you do have the 2 different bows. The 2 have similar ranges and damages, but the longbow is obviously for long ranges. Volley means you're at a penalty if your target is less than 30 feet from you, but that's what the shortbow is for. Since the remaster, swapping weapons is only 1 action, so it's not a huge issue. People familiar with fighters will know my suggested feat for this one, Point Blank Stance. This means for 1 action, you enter a stance that lasts till the encounter ends or you switch stances. It means that using weapons with the volley trait don't take the penalty if the target is too close, and if the ranged weapon doesn't have the volley trait, it deals an extra 2 damage in its first increment. Now, it feels like an action tax, but it's only 1, and you get a lot from it. It also works with any ranged weapons, so as soon as you get access to spicier weapons like the composite longbow, the shortbow, more advanced weapons, or firearms for that matter, you can get the most out of them. The idea with this build is to stay mid-range and unleash as many arrows as you can, moving when needed and keeping the shots coming. And that's it! That's my intro to the fighter for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. As you can tell with all the builds, there is an emphasis on hitting more, getting as many attacks in as possible while staying mobile or giving you options to do other things as needed. The idea with these builds is that I know it can be a little overwhelming with all the options and feats available, so I hope this helped, especially for people who are just starting. Now, as with all things, your table, your character, your choice. Build the fighter you want to build, but I hope these suggestions will help guide you to getting the most out of your experience playing the class. Remember that all the rules for Pathfinder are available for free at the archives in Nevis, so if you want to take a look at the options, you can have a look there. But that's it from me. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Honestly, every bit helps with the algorithm. I'm still building the channel up, and attention on these longer videos really helps my motivation to do them. And hell, I want to hear about your fighter builds or character concepts. Also, if you have a concept for a fighter and want some help with feat or weapon choice, drop them below. Can't promise I'll answer everyone, but I'll try, and I'm sure others will jump in as well. That said, if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon. Free members get access to the PF2 content I'm working on, along with snapshots into stuff I'm working on both personally and through my company Southern Realm Games. Paid members also get early access to scripts and videos I'm working on, and also access to the Foundry module, which gives you the aforementioned PF2 content straight into Foundry. Last thing, I have a book! Blackpowder Magic Unplugged is available through the Patreon and DriveThru RPG. It comes packed with a bunch of options to bring a Blackpowder revolution to your tables, including the Blackpowder Doctrine for Clerics, the Revolutionary Muse for the Bard, and the Combination Weapon Master archetype. Alrighty, that's it from me for now. Promise. I hope you have a good day, a good night, a good week, no matter where you are in the world. And remember, as always, we are the storytellers. Till next time, bye.